Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. This panel is supposed to be about Israel and Washington. I'm going to stretch the boundaries just a little bit to encompass Virginia, which is to say Israel and the Pentagon. Because one of the few points, I think, of unbounded bipartisan agreement in Washington is that U.S.-Israel security cooperation is right, good, mutually beneficial, and worth every nickel we spend on it. I'm not sure, however, that we understand why that is. And maybe with a better understanding of how the two countries came together and under what principles they come together, we can make a model for other kinds of bipartisan cooperation on the state of Israel. I had the honor of hearing Lord Rabbi Jonathan Sacks recently in Washington talking about the book of Samuel and the creation of the social contract between, they scare me, between the Jewish people and God. The Jewish people had asked for a king, and God said to the prophet Samuel, tell them what a king means, and if they still want one, give them one. That was the creation of the first social contract, but it wasn't the beginning of Israel as a people. The social covenant between Israel and God happened at Mount Sinai. And Rabbi Sacks, I'm going to quote him at some length because it's important, took great pains to explain that a contract and a covenant are two different things. A contract, he said, two or more people come together to make an exchange, which is to the benefit and the self-interest of both. A covenant is more like a marriage than an exchange. A covenant isn't about me, the voter, or me, the consumer, but about all of us together. Or, in that lovely key phrase of American politics, it is about we, the people. Biblical Israel had a society long before it had a state, and there's only one nation known to me, he said, that had the same dual founding as biblical Israel, and that is the United States of America, which has its social covenant in the Declaration of Independence in 1776, and its social contract in the Constitution of 1787. The covenant is central to the Mayflower Compact of 1620. It is central to the speech of John Winthrop aboard the Arbella in 1630. It is presumed in the most famous line of the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Rabbi Sacks concluded, they are self-evident only to people who have internalized the Hebrew Bible. I myself have taken more than 400 American military officers and security professionals to Israel over 30 years. And I have sent another 500 or so American military cadets and midshipmen to Israel before they take their commissions. And I can say that all of them understood the fundamental and profound principles that guide the United States and Israel. They don't always agree with any single aspect of Israel's political or military or social decisions, but I have never found one that didn't believe in the relationship between the Jews and the land of Israel. In other words, the United States military establishment is a Zionist institution. And you have to start there, so I start there. When you start with that, as you should, you see that all of the relationship, all the practical forms of things that come between the United States and Israel are grounded in founding principles that are one and the same. And I think Rabbi Sacks is right, you would have trouble finding other countries there. In 1979, I published the first of what I call the quick reference guides to Israel as a security asset for the United States. And when I started in 1979, it was about physical attributes. I talked about secure location, military capabilities, an air force that was larger than many in Western Europe, combat familiarity with the Russian doctrine. Soviet doctrine had Russian doctrine now. In 1996, there was a big change, and we started talking about ways that Israel improved the United States through intelligence cooperation, R&D capabilities, training for U.S. troops. And in 2006, I added the establishment of police-to-police counterterrorism training in Israel. And if you can imagine the United States taking police training from, let's say, China, or Venezuela, or Saudi Arabia, you have a very good imagination. Israel, over the course of its wars, has supplied to the United States military hardware that it captured from Russian armed armies, intelligence that it captured on the battlefield. In 1981, Israel bombed Iraq's nuclear reactor, meaning that the United States knew there were no nukes in Iraq when we got there in 1991. And my favorite story is after 9/11, Israel did what they called opening the cupboard. they showed the United States military everything they had, counterterrorism, urban warfare, and all the tricks of the trade. Marines who were training in Israel really, really liked the Israeli bomb-sniffing dogs. And they said to the Israelis, we would love to have those in Iraq. Those would be very helpful to us. And the Israelis said, yeah, but it takes a very long time to train these dogs. And the Marines said, yeah, but we really want them. So the Israelis decided that it was quicker to teach the Marines Hebrew combat commands for the dogs than it was to raise new dogs. Yes. There was a period of time when the United States Marines in Baghdad were commanding their dogs in Hebrew. They now have English-speaking dogs, but I wish they didn't. I thought it was a great idea. In September of 2007, Israel destroyed the Syrian, North Korean nuclear program in Syria. But not only did they get the information about the program and the factory and the facility, but also about Russian air defenses. And Russian air defense is what the Iranians have. And so when they share these things with us, they not only share things that have benefited them, but that will benefit us. And now we're going to get closer to the present. After the 2014 Gaza war, the administration roundly criticized Israel for what it perceived to be a lack of caring about Palestinian civilians in the war. Matthew Levitt just alluded to that. But it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Martin Dempsey, the senior American military officer in the United States of America, who said, and I quote, Israel did some extraordinary things to try to limit the civilian casualties, to include making it known that they were going to destroy a particular structure. The IDF, said Dempsey, is not interested in creating civilian casualties. They're interested in stopping the shooting of rockets and missiles out of Gaza into Israel. He surprised his audience, which was the Carnegie Council for Ethics in International Affairs, by telling them he had already sent delegations of American military officers to Israel to learn from the Israelis, among other things, the measures they took to prevent civilian casualties. Israel has been a partner with the United States in multinational exercises for many, many years. But most recently, they did one in the United States, where they flew with pilots from the United Arab Emirates, proving that Arab countries are not only willing to work with Israel, but under certain circumstances will make it public. I think that is a sea change in their attitude toward Israel, which is brokered by the United States. And right this minute, Israel is hosting the largest aerial training exercise in its history. It's called Blue Flag in the Negev Desert. 70 foreign aircraft from around the world, hundreds of pilots and their support teams are there. Participants include the United States, France, Italy, Greece, Poland, Germany, and India. It's the first time that the French, the Germans, and the Indians have participated with Israel in Israel. And again, I would say that if you could have imagined the Luftwaffe flying in Israel, with Israel, you again have a better imagination than I do. But there it is. So in conclusion, I would like to say, the United States and Israel are drawn together by common values and common threats to our well-being. The bipartisan support for our ally Israel is testament to those values, as well as to the practical recognition that threats require cooperation, intelligence, technology, and security policy. We have that with Israel. But more than that, the United States and Israel share an intimate understanding of nationhood. The British, our other best friends in the world, don't say, that rights are inalienable and endowed by the Creator. Rights in that context are endowed by the sovereign, by the king or the queen, and only those rights that the sovereign chooses to endow people with, which is why we had a revolution. And I think it points to the way to look at U.S.-Israel bipartisan cooperation. When we see the things that matter to us, and when we see the things that help us, and when we see the people who are friends with us, it is possible in Washington, even now, even today, to have bipartisan support for something that's important to us, and that's Israel. Thank you.